A Hairier problem. Rise to the Furball. By Blue Bastard. Chapter 15. Humbling River. This feels really weird.
I agree. Anybody else feeling uncomfortable?
Asked Gulu.
How can this feel so wrong? You getting the same present, Apple Bloom?
Asked Sweet.
Oh, yeah.
Agreed Apple Bloom. The four Crusaders were currently seated in front of the malt shop in central Ponyville, with both the schoolhouse being disinfected for any last trace of garlic smells, and Cheerily in the hospital for at least the rest of the week. She suffered a heart attack that somehow been triggered by the excessive garlic smell. Nobody knew why yet. The school full of civilians were allowed to roam free across the town. For the Crusaders, they immediately went to their second favorite treat shop and proceeded to get bored out of their minds with nothing to do. The concept of not having to spend the morning in one room educational facility on a weekday that wasn't a holiday was a foreign concept to them.
Arrgh!
Groaned Sweet.
I am so bored. Surely there's nothing we can do to try and get our key marks with days off from school.
Hey, piped Babs. When do we try being cute by Crusaders bagel bakers?
No!
Shouted the other three fillies in unison. The shutterstock being cut off caused Babs to reel back in shock, sending her off her stool.
I guess you three already tried that, and it didn't work.
The brown filly replied, as she got herself back up on her seat.
Like you wouldn't believe,
answered Skulu, implying it was best that the matter stop being discussed. Babs took a sip from her milkshake, already putting the next topic of discussion on mine.
Well, on the subject of things I can't believe, I'm still surprised Never Tiara and Silver Spoon still haven't fought out for you girls.
She answered her collective groan.
You think those two were ever going to
dryly replied Apple Bloom, drinking her own milkshake.
Well, the whole werewolf thing, you know?
Yellow cousin put her milkshake tumbler back on the table with a little too much force.
Babs, I swear, you start starting up with that nonsense again.
Babs leaned back and quickly waved her hoofs as if trying to ward something off.
No. It's not my stance on the werewolf thing. It's hers. I mean, what does she think of a werewolf? Diamond is the poster child of being a rich brat, and I should know since it's what my parents keep trying to mold me into. But she wouldn't spend any more time around you than absolutely necessary.
Skilla couldn't help but chuckle.
All right, who wants to explain that one?
Sleepbell struck.
I'll do it.
She then looked at Basil, looking her eyes and screamed, "This is gonna be a doozy." Basil gulps, "This is gonna suck, isn't it?"
Well, in terms of stupidity, yes. The whole reason Dire Tiara has some vendetta against Apple Bloom with the whole she's a werewolf thing is that a good while back, she had a nightmare that claimed there was a monster at her window. And that monster just happened to look like a werewolf version of Apple Bloom?
Sweet nodded as she partook of her milkshake.
Scared her for a few days to the point she couldn't come to school. First thing she did come back was like she was some frightened puppy. Yeah, then she got some good idea about going after Apple Bloom, because she actually was a werewolf, and everything became as it was when you arrived,
nickered Skulu, who was drank some of her own milkshake as he now already finished it.
You think Diamond and Silver might be behind what's going on lately?
Suggested Babs, sipping up the last of her shake.
Apple shook her head. Possible. I don't see how they could have gone every kid in Ponyville into my room without linking some pony up. Garlic like too for that matter. But who else would do stuff like that?
None of the Crusaders could give Babs a straight answer. So eventually the discussion turned to other minor topics. It was continued as the last of the milkshakes were finished, and the quartet got up, began making their way to Sweet Apple Acres.
Hey,
started Babs.
That's a pretty big water tower. I don't remember it being there the last time I was here. Yeah, they just put it up,
Sketcher Scoots.
Twilight ended up destroying the old one a few years back to stop an Ursa. So they made a new one that holds even more water to accommodate the fact that Ponyville's been growing over the years.
Huh. Babs looked up at the giant silver tank suspended in the air. It was a far distance away from the town, but when seen from the main road, it looks like it was among the other cottages and buildings in that direction. The Manhattan native had to admit, the ponies over there sure were brave in dealing with a leaking water tower. Wait, leaking water tower? Bass was going to ask if that was normal, but suddenly, shoved to the side by Skulu, Apple did the same with Sweetie. One half of the Crusaders reacted faster than the other.
We gotta get high ground!
said Skulu. The first to realize that all the wire was going. Luckily, a nearby shopkeeper had heard her, realized what was going on, beckoned the Crusaders to the shop. He has to get the door bar off as the runaway wire surged the town along the main roads. Thanks, Mr. Crunch! The three Ponyville native Crusaders said in unison. Babs, however, was trying to figure out how the wire outside wasn't getting to the building. Scoot noted her state.
Ponyville is situated near a low point in the river. All their houses are magically charged, so they're floodproof.
Bess was going to make a point about why Scootaloo could have possibly known that. But then remembered her parents were weather ponies, so she probably just picked it up from them. Toffee Crunch, however, was more concerned with how the disaster outside came to be. Any of you see what happened?
You haven't watched that much Star Butterfly, and yet you brought in a Toffee reference!
Look, Trixie, if I wasn't going to do that, probably one of the commenters on the video were going to point out the joke.
Yeah, squeak. Why did you have what we were looking at?
Any further discussion was silenced as every pony suddenly heard a very loud but unidentifiable noise. Toffee, however, feared the worst. Oh dear. I hope that wasn't the wire tower's hole breaking even further for the pressure.
Can I go to the roof and check?
I don't see why not, struck Toffee. And so, the four fillies and one stallion headed to the roof. From their vantage point, they could see the middle of Ponyville had become one excited series of rapids. The wreckage of several fender cars could be seen floating down. The wire tower itself, now constantly having started leaking from overpressurization, as half of the visible face was now releasing the unusual river into town. Thankfully, there wasn't any pony caught in the flow, so they all made it to safety in time. Then Apple Bloom caught sight of Silver Spoon's glasses coming down the stream. Said Silver Spoon. One of the lenses was cracked, but it was a moot point as the accessory was promptly smashed into a lamppost, reducing it to useless scrap and shards of glass. What the? Was all she could say in her head before noticing Silver Spoon was coming down. She was flaying around, clearly having trouble keeping herself afloat, even without her glasses. Oh no, lamented Toffee. That poor filly. Apple said nothing, instead testing to jump. Scoot and Sweet instantly noticed.
Don't do it, Apple Bloom!
Sighed Sweet.
Don't be a fool with your life!
Costed Scootaloo. Well, it was all for naught.
I'm a-coming for you, Silver!
Screamed Apple as he leaped into the river through town. Well, what? Is she crazy? Exclaimed Toffee.
No, she's my cousin,
replied Bass, who could do nothing but watch as Apple Bloom was swiftly carried downstream. However, in the filly's attempts to get control of the direction, the wire spider such that Babs momentarily caught clear sight of her profile, a sight that sent chills down her spine and confirmed her worst fears. Silver had been never so scared in her life. Even though she had been in far riskier situations, never before had she been in a situation where she was actually going to die. The racing wire flow carried her rapidly through the streets of Ponyville. The constance of what was up and down lost as she tumbled through the semi-transparent hood.
Hi!
She wailed, wasting a precious chance to get air as she barely had any notice when her head would break above the surface. Her glasses had been washed away when she had been caught in the secondary burst from the wire tank. But as she even had them, were meant to be used submerged in water as they weren't swimming goggles. Silver wished she had some goggles on her, as trying to open her eyes usually just hurt because of the wire. Mercifully, she managed to grab onto a street lamp with a hoof, and held her grip long enough to get her other foreleg around and anchor herself. It was hard, as the wire kept rushing forward, but gave her a chance to catch her breath and open her eyes.
Silver Spoon, hold on, I'm a-coming!
She wished she had. Smack dab in the middle of the Southern River in Ponyville Central was Apple Bloom. Why was she in the rusty wire coming straight at her? Silver couldn't tell, and her poor eyesight being worthless at her rage beyond how far she could stretch her hooves wasn't helping. However, when Apple Bloom was close enough, Silver realized with horror that the strange black dot on Apple Bloom's muzzle was actually a dog nose. It was true. She actually was a werewolf. No doubt she was taking the chance to deal with one of her tormentors once and for all.
No! Stay away! Don't— Ah!
Her back distraught Great Filly. Her tears was betrayed to fear as he was feeling getting lost in the raging wires. Her momentary chase of focus caused her grip on the lamppost to fail, as he was set created back down the road. She was sure she was going to die now, either for drowning as most of her air had been burnt up trying to fight the current, or from Apple Bloom tearing out her throat. She didn't care which one actually scared her more. Either way, her life was going to end, and she really didn't want it to. She had already begun to start blacking out, choking on the wires she was taking in, as opposed to oxygen as her lungs became desperate. When she felt a spine, he could touch what felt like canine paws on her person.
Oh no! This is it!
Thought Silver, tensing up his preparation for the end. Only, the end didn't come. She heard Applebloom say things, her accent much more husky than usual. But aside from the unusual feeling of oversized dog paws and the other feeling's longer coat of fur, it wasn't a point where Silver felt the powerful jaws of her captor closer around her neck. Instead, she was keeping her afloat. "Breathe!" screamed Applebloom. Silver, finding her head staying up above the wire now she had help, obeyed, was casually trying to relax. Or what if it wasn't for the fact that Applebloom was still a werewolf? The poor sighted filly could only imagine the horrible reasons why the werewolf would want to keep her alive. Was there erupted by Applebloom, following up a blurring sensation for "Brace for impact!" The force of the thud was felt by both fillies. Applebloom, having positioned herself to take the brunt of the blow, due to being very physically fit, thanks to lycanthropy, and her usual farm chores, but neither filly was seriously hurt. And they both had their backs to a building wall in an alley, just off the main road, held fast by the flow of water. However, the water was finally beginning to recede, causing the two fillies to slowly slide down until their hooves were on solid, if rather muddy, ground.
"You around, Silver?"
asked Applebloom. The address turned to the werewolf, finding he had already shifted back to her regular form. After all she had been told about Applebloom's mannerisms while a werewolf, and formerly by his bespectacled pony, had trouble comprehending, forcing to change the reality.
"Yes, but I don't get... Aren't you gonna..."
Because you get out. Is it because you're such a pain in the plot along with down tiara to me and my friends? You can't understand why I say you? Youngest Apple shook her head, then shook herself dry like a dog.
"I can't stand either of you two normally. Not enough to simply stand by and let you drown because you're all a complete jerk to the Crusaders. But what about..."
Silver then leaned on wobbly legs, still recovering from a fright of near death.
"The whole werewolf thing."
Applebloom just snickered in annoyance.
"Well, last time, I'm not a werewolf. I should have known Diamond was still on about that nonsense. Well, even if I was a werewolf, do you think I would have bothered to save you?"
Silver Spoon didn't immediately reply. Instead, she took a deep breath and focused her eyes on Applebloom. Applebloom was denying it, but Silver knew the pony before her was a werewolf. When it was just risked exposing her secret, the exact opposite of the whole bursting the wire tower plan intended to force out for her to save the life of a pony, she, by all rights, probably wouldn't have minded letting die. Silver knew Applebloom had gone wolf form in the wire. She knew she felt that padded paw holding her close to the werewolf's body. But Applebloom hadn't killed her. The nearsighted pony took another deep breath before looking Applebloom right in the eyes when she gave the answer.
"No."
Applebloom only smiled, as all she had time for, as the crowd of ponies approaching would allow. Silver, on the other hand, suddenly felt the exhaustion of her near-death experience come rushing back as the adrenaline quickly wore off, and could do nothing to stop herself from passing out on the spot. Raspberry Barrel and Heliodor did not expect to find Ponyville in worse shape than it had been when they had left it.
"The Mayberry Fair. It's all muddy now,"
whispered Barrel in near shock as he surveyed the damage. Apparently, several hours before she returned from her journey into the woods for more gems, the wire tower had succumbed to the pressure of the wire inside it and had burst, flooding the town. While the standard anti-flooding protective spells on the homes had ensured the worst kind of damage, ruined homes and shops would displace a large portion of the town populace and not happen. Many street vendors would need to acquire new carts for their wares. For those who could even salvage what was left of their property, sheer amount of water had turned Ponyville into a virtual swamp.
"Ciao, Mrs. Raspberry,"
called a familiar voice that Raspberry immediately identified as Pear Blossom. Turning to face the voice, Raspberry was horrified to see the fruit vendor's cart had been smashed into a lamppost, like so many other things caught in the flooding. Not a single pear had survived intact, the cart itself not looking much better.
"Oh no, I'm so sorry, Blossom."
You know, this is probably a distant cousin of Applejack's. Just saying. All that revenue you could have gotten, all washed away with nothing but a broken cart to show for it. To the unicorn's surprise, the parastiller was still out of weight. You do not need to worry for me. I am still in one piece, and that is all I can ask for. While it is true that I have lost income, I still have many pairs back at my pair farm that were not touched by this event as well. And as for my cut, I can still take it back and service what I can. You have the worst Italian accent. Shut up, Trix! But everything about the wheelbase is gone. Again, it is not a big deal, mia caro. Not one is a carpenter, and I don't think he'll charge his wife with the money that he keeps more than bears on his dinner plate. Also gave a slight wink to the younger mare. Wow, that's really fortunate, said relieved Raspberry. I hate to lose the ability to buy your pears. No pony grows them to taste like yours. Grazie. Although it is not me who is the most fortunate. Apparently, one young filly got caught up in the water, and went around and learned to be for apple bloom, bravely helping us stay afloat. Really? That's incredible. Mess of apple bloom suddenly reminded the unicorn of the biggest reasons he'd been so hasty to return to Ponyville. Only indirectly associates with Sleepy Bell. Listen, I'd love to help you get back home, but I need to make some deliveries on the other side of town. And then, by all means, go and earn your living. I should be back in a few days to sell you to the bears that you couldn't ever eat. Ciao, la bella. The two lads bid their farewells before Raspberry went off towards Rarity's house. Guess we'll all be having pears tonight, Healy. Raspberry apologized to her pet. He grumbled, as he'd been looking forward to having pears. Hey, maybe ask Casimir can have some pears back at the Traveler's Retreat. Cawed happily, looking forward to having pears.
Whined Sleepy Bell. You told me my costume would be ready. Nightmare Night is next week.
Rarity sighed for what felt like the 5th time in 30 seconds.
Exactly. Nightmare Night is in a week, so I think I have a right to point out the deadline isn't here yet.
Suddenly, some pony knocked on the door.
Coming!
Rarity found the ponies he had been hoping for on the other side.
I hope this isn't a bad time, said Raspberry. I can come back later if need be. Oh, no,
squealed Rarity, practically dragging the helpless mare into the boutique.
I can always make time for you, darling, especially when you can help me deal with a problem that requires your services.
My what? Rarity motioned to her head to Sleepy Bell. Was attention was drawn elsewhere and hadn't noticed the unicorn or Phoenix come in.
Okay,
said relieved Raspberry, getting to the point. She removed her saddlebags and reached into them with a hoof, pulling out the same crown frame Rarity had given her not too long ago. The difference this time, however, was that the formerly empty mounting point at the center now was occupied by a stunningly beautiful diamond, almost a pale icy blue. The perfectly cut gem shined in the light, and was certainly something that looked like it belonged to a real princess, as opposed to a fake one.
It's perfect!
Exclaimed Rarity, practically about to investigate what was going on.
Oh, I didn't know Miss Barrel or her pet were... Wow, is that my crown?
Rarity nodded, leaving the crown for Raspberry's sofa and placing it on Sweetie's head. It was a perfect fit.
And now, you see why your costume wasn't ready.
Giggled Rarity, before giving her attention back to Raspberry.
But I think I can speak for both my sister and I when I say you couldn't have found a better gem for that crown. So, let's talk payment, sorry.
Oh yes, well... Raspberry nervously kicked the floor, trying to come up with a price. What about 100 bits?
100 bits?!
shouted Rarity, her jaw hanging in shock. Raspberry struck back, startled by the sudden reaction. Theodore was well, moving a wing to seal himself, if need be.
If that's too high, then I can reduce...
Startled to right gem seller, but stopped with Rarity barely face-up, Raz feeling the worst. Rarity, however, decided exasperation, and for whatever reason laughed softly.
Oh, Raspberry, darling. You need to stop selling yourself short. I worked with gems ever since I got my kitty mark. So much that if I didn't want to be a fashionista anymore, I could probably go into evaluating the value of gems. That diamond my sister's scaffolding around with her head, that is far more valuable than measly 100 bits.
Yeah, of course, I knew that, said Raspberry. But you're my best customer, and probably one of my closest friends I've ever had, so consider it a discount.
I'm afraid I will have to politely refuse such a discount,
declared Rarity, with an air of supplying with excessive amounts of class.
I will pay you a minimum of 300 bits for that diamond, and not a single bit less.
Gee, thanks, Rarity. Half said, half whispered, an extremely modest Raspberry.
Furthermore, that is separate from all the other gems I'm sure you brought to me, which we can discuss a bit later, but for now, I insist that we retire to my lounge and have a chat over tea. I simply must know more about you, darling.
Raspberry froze with silent horror, crying Heliodor to lightly squeeze her horn, bring her back to focus. She needed to come up with something more about her past to feel safer feeling, as well as was quickly becoming evident Rarity could be a trusted confidant. Actually telling somebody the truth, for once, required more nerve than Raspberry currently had the ability to muster.
Are you sure about this?
Asked Fluttershy.
Relax! This is Twilight we're talking about!
Confidently exclaimed Rainbow. This is as much for both her sake and Lightning Dust as it was for Fluttershy. While living with Lightning Dust hadn't exactly been as bad as the Blue Pegasus initially feared, and that was before factoring in the fact she was becoming a werewolf, there was still the problem of having to feed her. As everybody had learned with Applejack, the biggest problem with a werewolf hiding their lycanthropy was the need to suddenly consume meat. Since it had worked out with AJ going to Fluttershy's place for her protein supplements, Rainbow and Twilight decided to let Fluttershy in on Dust's fate. Due to Fluttershy's cottage also being relatively remote from Ponyville, made the perfect place to try the first of Twilight's experiments, as in the event that something went wrong, the aftermath could be contained. Indeed, there's not much to worry about in the first place, said Twilight, facing through some notes he brought to consult. All I'm doing is trying to examine the extent to which the curse is magically bound to her bloodstream. From there, I can calculate what needs to be done to extract a sample from the counter-agent spell could be made in a language we can understand, please, droned Dust, bored, annoyed, and nervous for a place in the middle of the room. Springton entered, hauling another box of notes. Basically, she's putting you under a metaphorical microscope to examine your bloodstream. Only instead of an actual device, she's using your magic. I'm impressed. You can actually translate nerd speak, said Dust. Her tone implying was an indirect insult, and getting a reprimanded look from Rainbow. Sorry, that came out wrong. Rainbow just shook her head and gave Twilight a what can you do look. Twilight barely even registered the indirect insult in Rainbow's actions. Instead, having taking some more notes. A few minutes later, the various audience, levitated by the alicorn, flew behind her, leaving nothing in between her and Lightning Dust. Alright, I'm ready to begin. Are you, Dust? The biggest merely tried. As I'll ever be.
Good. Beginning magical examination in 3, 2, 1.
The arm around Twilight's horn, already present for the magic used to levitate her notes, went on knots in luminosity as it created a duplicate aura around the werewolf to be. For the next few moments, every point was silent as Twilight peered to the level of physical reality, accessible only by trained unicorn doctors. However, it was also left her oblivious to the world around her. Light! Somebody calling her name, Twilight! The alicorn opened her eyes to find Spike, frantically trying to get her attention. Kill the magic! Kill it! Why? I'm so... started Twilight. Not only did she stop so soon after starting, but Sully was at a loss for words when she realized just what it was she accomplished, immediately stopping her magic flow. As the notes fell around her, she looked at it hard to see in front of her. Anita collapsed on the floor, seemed to be suffering from the early stages of heat exhaustion. Rainbow was on her haunches in front of her temporary roommate, who was holding Dust. Firesight was conspicuously absent.
What did you do?
Snarled Rainbow at Twilight.
This isn't any kind of safe examination I know of.
I don't understand. There's not been any adverse reaction to the spell. It's a common tool used in hospitals all over Equestria.
To be fair, Twilight, you're not exactly trained in medical sciences like the staff at a hospital, even if you are more skilled in magic in general. So itchy.
Whined Dust, her tightly cramped eyelids doing nothing to prevent the tears coming out from the pain. But the itchiness made all parties present very, very nervous. What have I done? Whispered Twilight. The former cases of what had happened only now becoming evident.
Out of my way,
said Fluttershy, pressing into the room with some kind of weird padded stick, and similarly padded coverings on her forelegs. She motioned for Rainbow to move, allowing the animal caretaker to take her place.
Dust, look at me. Open your eyes to look at me, please.
The suffering Pegasus did so, her eyes already starting to become red for crying. Fluttershy looked at the stick.
I know you're in pain,
said the yellow mare, not even blinking to ensure total eye contact.
That's why I had this. Bite into it as much as you have to. It's not going to lessen the pain, but it will help make it more tolerable.
Lightning gave a quick nod, opening her mouth long enough for Fluttershy to put in the stick. The moment she pulled away, the jaws clamped shut like a sprinkler device, Dust's fangs sinking deep into the padding.
The stress stick is something I use to help animals go through eternal pains and pose the risk of biting others, namely me,
said Fluttershy, answering the questions she knew had been forming in the minds of every pony else.
Trust me, when you have to help a bear give birth, you learn these things.
Any further discussion was cut off by Dust, letting out an unnaturally loud scream. Startling Twilight and Spike enough that they backed away. Not Fluttershy, however. It took one of Dust's toes into her own, a padded one, while using a wing to toss the padded covering twin over to Rainbow. She wasted no time in putting it on, and taking Dust's other feather hoof into her hers as well. I still do love it when a fic takes the time to remember Fluttershy's medical training. Some of you other fics can learn that. The presence and dedication of the two Pegasus ponies, even in recognition of the sheer amount of danger they put themselves in, touched Dust began to get a very in-depth experience as to what Applejack must have felt like when she first transformed. The sort of non-werewolves in the room, the involuntary convulsions and unnatural alterations going on with Dust's body, along with the constant screaming, horrified them, as they knew too well that this is what Applejack had gone through thanks to Sablelone. Dust didn't know how long it had been between her collapsing from having spontaneously felt really hot when the pains of transformation had ended. Right now, all she really felt like Joey was laying on the floor and crying for the loss of her status as a pure pony.
Dust?
He asked Rainbow.
Don't you fucking dare ask if I'm alright,
snapped Dust, the rest of her retort cut off by the shock of hearing her voice becoming much huskier.
I'm not stupid, Dust. I clearly saw what just happened. Making sure you're still you. If you mean I'm still the self-serving, egotistical bitch who's crashing on your couch, the jury's still out on that right now. But it's just not renting out that until the jury gets back. Unless you want to learn what it's like to be forcibly changed into a different species. People smiled. Oh, good. Your sense of humor made it through your transformation. So we have that. Celestia, damn it, Dust, said Dust, unable to resist giggling at the inside joke. He must have throwing her, but retained enough of her natural voice, it wasn't totally horrifying. Fluttershy gave Rainbow an approving nod, for it was important to keep Dust in good spirits, knowing what just happened. Hey, Lightning, you by any chance hungry? Dust stopped flapping, her eyes went wide. She was pretty hungry now that she thought about it. Feels like I could eat an entire manticore right now, honestly. Well,
started Fluttershy playfully.
I'm fresh out of those, but I do have some meat burgers I could cook up instead.
That would be great. Without another word, Fluttershy got up and went over to the kitchen. Twilight, meanwhile, slowly walked up to Dust, who herself was secretly getting on all four of her new paws. Listen, Dust, I'm so sorry for this. Sorry for what? Twilight's face immediately turned to that confusion. I just triggered your first transformation. It's because of me you're a full werewolf now. Aren't you mad at me? Dust shook her head. Yeah, we all knew this was going to happen to me eventually. All you did was try to help fix it. Nobody could have known how the curse would have reacted to what you did. Plus, it's probably for the best to have gotten this whole transformation piece out of the way as soon as possible, too. Well, it's a relief to hear you don't blame me for this. You're a princess. You think I could get away with trying anything against you? Laughed Dust. That said, I really feel like stretching my limbs after Fluttershy's done with those burgers. She was still talking, Dust had unfurled her new wings, which didn't change at all. These babies are still authentic. Hopefully they can still keep me afoot like this.
Yeah, we're going to need to talk about that,
said Dust. What are you talking about? Asked Dust, turning her head slightly to the side in confusion.
You're a show-off, Dust. I know, I'm one myself. That's the main reason we hit it off so well back in the academy. Now, that means you're going to have to want to do low-flying stunts since it gets the adrenaline pumping, and a few of every point on the ground.
What's the problem with that?
How do you think the town's gonna react when it looks like a werewolf has gained the ability to attack from the sky and is diving towards random points in the middle of Ponyville?
Point.
Moo! Moo!
Called out a totally account, not Sleepbell. Some point moves within the Apple family household. Disappeared from an upstairs window to the downstairs, where a door was open. Luckily, Sleepbell and Scootaloo made their way inside. Babs closed the door behind him.
Where's Apple Bloom?
Asked Scootaloo in a hushed whisper, not wanting to wake the sleeping apples.
Not in her room, which is exactly as I expected,
sneered Babs, prompting the unicorn paces to trade uneasy glances of each other.
What do you mean she is in her room?
Come. Babs motioned for the duo to go upstairs, making sure to keep the noise down. Sure enough, after leading them into Apple Bloom's room, the main occupant was completely missing from the bed.
Maybe she's in the restroom or something,
suggested Sweetie.
Then explain this.
Babs then walked over, brought up a bag hidden from the bed. It was an empty Happy Puppy Dog biscuit packet.
She is a werewolf, I knew it. But doesn't think she'd tell us something about that?
Pointing out Scoot.
I mean, we're her best friends. We tell each other everything. That's been since she was with us the night Diamond had that nightmare about her being a werewolf too. Well, there's only one way to find out, said Babs,
moving closer to the closet where she looked out what looked like a lasso rope.
Apple Bloom says she kept this to try practicing her lasso skills. But we tried for lassoing tossing for cutie marks. Didn't work.
Pointing out Scootaloo.
It's not Applejack's special talent either, but you see her skills with it. Maybe Apple Bloom just wants to try being like her big sister? Regardless, we need it now more than her anyway. What are we gonna do?
I never asked Sweetie.
We're gonna try and ambush her by hiding behind this door. So when she comes into the room, we use the rope to tie her up and make it so she has to tell us what's really going on.
Started Sweetie Belle.
If she is a werewolf, isn't it kind of put us at risk being bit? Quickly, hide!
Interrupted Babs, pushing the Crusaders behind the door. The only sound was that of the front door being opened and closed. Then, a sound like padded feet going up the stairs. It said halfway through and turned to a regular hoof clopping. The utensil was thick enough to cut with a silver knife, so the sound host went right up to behind the door.
Sorry, Babs,
said Apple Bloom. So was shocked that Apple Bloom had somehow knew she was there the whole time. Even more so, suddenly Scootaloo and Sleepbell jumped her and soon had her tied up. Apple Bloom moved to close the door and looked right at her cousin, with sad eyes, instead of the angry eyes Babs was expecting.
But what's going on?
exclaimed Babs, only to be hushed by the Crusaders, and forced to maintain a hushed whisper.
Okay, what's the big idea here?
Babs, I can see this going very badly for you. But luckily this is a T-rated fic, I think.
Do you promise not to scream?
asked the yellow filly, the pretty nature crust evident in her eyes. Babs merely nodded. No recourse. Apple Bloom shifted again into her werewolf form. Babs gasped, but was surprised she was the only one to do so.
Wait a minute. Scoot, Sweetie, you two knew about this? Apple Bloom, why did you tell them and not me?
I didn't tell them. They were there when I first turned into this. They've known the entire time trying to help me hide it.
But why did I get informed of this? What a glass. I thought it was a crusader just like you three.
You are, Babs. But it was my call not to tell you because, well, you're family. I couldn't risk you telling Big Mac or Granny or above all else Applejack.
Babs had to wonder why her older cousin was singled out.
Wait, Applejack of all buddies.
You know that hell werewolf business that went down a year ago?
Yeah?
It started because Applejack was a werewolf. The one that got killed was the same one that turned her. It was a really rough time for her, especially since we all found out later that, well, let's say she found out I somehow became a werewolf. The things she had blamed, I don't know what would happen. Now scares what it could be of what that would be.
I understand, but again, why did you let me know about this?
Scootaloo realized what was going on.
Babs, are you angrier about the fact you were kept in the dark about Apple Bloom being a werewolf than Apple Bloom being a werewolf? Yeah, I thought you guys thought it was trustworthy. Aren't the Crusaders supposed to be some kind of secret society or something? Keeping secrets from everybody but ourselves is kind of the point, isn't it?
Silence again. The Apple Bloom spoke up.
As I was saying, I was the one who wanted to keep you in the dark about all this, but I thought you would be afraid of me. Afraid of this monster I am now.
It was safe enough. Applebloom walked up to the still tied up Babs and raised a paw. Babs didn't know what to expect, other than not being Applebloom, simply touching the lasso knot, causing the binding ropes to fall off easily. Afraid to try feeling, but Babs' attention was still on Applebloom. Despite the more canine-like features, was clearly the same pony.
You kidding? It's kinda cool having a werewolf for a cousin. Thus, not actively hurting other ponies. I mean, you risk exposing the secret to all to save some pony's life. Especially since that pony's apparently trying to prove you are a werewolf.
So you did see my wolf muzzle when I was spinning around. I didn't believe Scooter Slee told me you had, but no point now. Guess I'm sorry for wanting to keep this from you. It's Crusader and your cousin. I should have been more open to this about you.
Babs merely moved to embrace her transformed kin.
It's alright, Applebloom. Let's promise not to have any more secrets like this again. Deal? Deal!
Sleepbell and Scootaloo said nothing, allowing the cousins to rebuild their bond.
Aww,
Said Slee, taking in the touching moment. Scootaloo just snickered in annoyance, feeling it was too hammy a resolution. Desperate to get free of the adorable moment, so he realized something else the Crusaders needed to address.
Hey, girls, Nightmare Night is next week. We still need costumes. And no, Applebloom, having yourself as a wolf won't cut it.